Welcome to Emotional Sobriety.
I haven't asked you about your knee lately. What's happening?
It's amazing how mind over matter. What I did is I met with my last doctor. I've decided to see before I go with the guy within my medical care system,
Yeah,
who's going to
yeah.
be doing the surgery. There's something about his succinctness with which he told me that look, it's a binary. Like you get the surgery this time next year, you're doing cartwheels, most likely, or
Hmm.
you have a bum knee for the rest of your life. So like
Wow.
when he laid it out like that, I'm just like, oh shit, well. I feel great now. Like I'm just gonna roll my dice on the better option. You know how it goes, like with medical stuff, is it just gets kind of baked into like your overall experience,
Right,
and then
right.
it's like the temperature in the tub, kind of like
Hmm.
you form an equilibrium with the temperature
Hmm.
that's been
Yeah.
raised, and all of a sudden now you don't like feel as haunted every fucking day with, you know.
Right. Well, yeah, as humans, we habituate to anything. Absolutely. It's like it doesn't matter what it is. It's like we'll adjust and it'll become our norm.
I'm just gonna worry no matter what. I got the oddest compliment from my girlfriend the other day when she talked about how calm I was, or like
Hmm.
how little things seemed to bother me. And I
Hmm.
was trying to convey to her that like up until relatively recently, like 5, 6 years ago, I could not sit in a room. I could not receive any stimuli without
Hmm.
just this constant screaming need to medicate myself.
Hmm.
And I think just like I don't have any choice but to try and like meet it head on. And like it's not trying to affect an appearance of calm. I'm just trying to like be okay with, all the things that stress me out, all the things I worry about. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean I'm not feeling it. It just means
Yeah,
that
but what you're describing is that she gave you not only a compliment, but or an observation and a compliment, but it happened to be something that you've worked really hard to do.
yeah, I sure have.
That's like if you've been working on a piano piece and I hear you play it and I go like, "That's beautiful." You go, "Well, it ought to be. I've been practicing for fucking 5 years."
It was really nice to hear it, I must say.
I'm doing good. I had an egg and two sausage links for breakfast this morning.
That's the first time I've heard about the food update. You're actually eating
Oh
good
yeah,
stuff
I've been
now.
doing. Well, I eat some stuff. It's like none of it's any fun, but it's like it's doable. And for some reason, sausage patties and sausage links, I can eat easily. So I eat a lot of that.
Well, that's a pretty good deal because I like that stuff quite a bit. I
I do
like,
too.
yeah.
It got up from his beauty sleep. I didn't get to
Yeah.
sleep at 2 o'clock the last couple nights and haven't slept at all. Last night I slept for 9 hours. God, it
Oh
was
Damn.
man, good. Good morning, and that's great.
morning.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
just like to hear that you're sleeping. That makes me feel good.
yeah. I thank God, man. I was running on fumes yesterday. Um, okay, the article is "Enter My Lonely Heart."
Okay. Let me look at
Oh, that
it.
sounds sweet.
Good to see you guys. Good morning.
Yeah.
I had to get my cup of Joe. So, morning,
Well,
Joe.
oh yeah, that's a good cup, by the way.
That's a great cup.
Isn't that great cup?
Mhm. It looks southwest. Is it southwest?
Yeah,
Yeah.
got it from that company called Pendleton. I like their stuff.
Hmm.
It can't.
Yeah.
Is Camp Pendleton where they train the Marines? Or
Uh-huh.
yeah, so I thought.
That's a good cap. I like
Isn't
it.
that cool, Pat? Huh? Look at that.
Uh,
That
I'm
is
going to
really nice.
this is for Paris. I'm going to Paris in week and a half. I leave on a Monday. Oh, yeah, less than that. I leave a week from Monday.
wow.
Oh, that's gonna be awesome.
I'm gonna go watch some French Open, Tom.
Oh, wow.
Oh, is that what's going
My, s-
on, huh?
my sister just came back from Paris. She got a chance she has a granddaughter that lives in London, I think, and she and her husband invited her over, and she'd never been to Europe. She's like closing in on 80 years old, and it's like she had the time of her life. They did all of London. They went to, I think they went to Rome. They ended up in Paris, and it's like. And she sent me, pictures and comments the whole time. It was just such a,
Cool.
in my family, having somebody is full of gratitude that's definitely we have survived my family if you can do something like that and feel gratitude.
The band is back. Tom and Allen, emotional sobriety. How are you guys doing this morning? And how is your emotional sobriety?
My emotional sobriety has the hiccups.
Yeah.
You come up with the greatest lines, man. Like on Thursday night, I love that. How you summarize everything in one sentence.
I don't want to retire entirely from work, but I want to change my career. I want to retire from, I told these people, I said, I want to retire from doing therapy. Basically, I want to retire from being helpful to people. And I want to just become individual people's comedy writer. So like when they're going home for the holidays, they talk to me about their family, and we role play, find what their uncle's gonna say and stuff. And I just write lines for them to use throughout the holidays to keep everybody off kilter.
When you were in a kind of cancer treatment delirium, you sent me this amazing show pitch that I've still got that I need to put some work into. But it's like I keep thinking if I was a writer on The Sopranos, I could have done that like gangbusters because there's this real surreal kind of like
all right,
yeah.
we'll have to just have that conversation sometime, because what I remember about that is how in depth my thoughts were about it. It's like I mean, I had this whole television show for Netflix worked out, set in a chemotherapy room. I mean, I had it, and when you're in chemotherapy, you're just sitting there for hours. And so I just, my little head just developed this thing, and so I actually wrote it down as best I could and sent it to Patrick. Said, here's a show, and then of course later when he reminded me that I sent it, I thought, I don't remember what it is, but it probably sucked.
No, it's good. It's pinned in my notes app, so
All right,
I look
all
at it
right,
often. Yeah.
that's good.
How about you, Alan?
Well, my emotional sobriety is still waking up.
That's what I was going to say. I'll check in for Alan. He just told us that he slept 9 hours, man.
Man,
I am so happy for you.
I just have not been able to sleep. It's really interesting paying attention to how my pain has transformed through this whole experience with surgery. And it's very interesting. So there was the initial pain of the surgery, and Patrick will relate to this. That there's a certain pain that goes with that, but it's after the initial day or two, it's no longer an acute pain, and it's more of this kind of just low level presence at 4 or 5 or 6. Sometimes it gets higher, but it's just with you all the time. Then when I fractured my leg, it was a very different pain. It was like a very acute pain, right? That was like, oh, I don't want to move my leg. I don't want. I didn't feel that with the surgery. With the surgery, I wanted to do exercises, right? I wanted to get back, and I could endure that kind of low level pain. With the fracture, no, I was dreading getting out of bed and even trying to get to the bathroom because I didn't want to put any weight on the leg. It hurt so much, right? Very different experience. And now that the fracture is starting to heal up, I'm doing better. I'm in less pain during the day. But there's this funny thing. It's like the nerves in my leg are somehow aggravated. And so I get these weird sensations in my leg, and I can't go to sleep with these damn things. And I think last night I probably took 10 goddamn melatonin to get to sleep. I mean, I don't want to, I'm just still taking a half a tramadol and stuff but I'm down to a half a tramadol, not a whole tramadol. So that's really good news. And, but it's a very different, it's like it transforms all the time. And, I was excited. I started physical therapy last week and it was good. I mean, I can see some hope at the end of the thing, but man, I have lost a lot of strength in this leg because I'm not using it for over months. I mean, I look down at it and it's a twig. I mean, there's no muscle left.
Yeah, that's a trip. I mean, especially for you, somebody so active and so athletic. Like, I mean, I was doing a bunch of work on, with my weights and stuff at the time I had my accident. And
Yeah,
then,
man, I remember at one point in time I was saying, "Hey, man, watch out! Don't mess with that."
yeah. And then, this is when you're on a recovery cycle from an injury. Yeah, it gets pretty gnarly.
I think Maddie could take you right now.
Yeah, she probably
Um,
could. Yeah.
Me too, by the way, you just kicked my bad leg.
She
Look,
did?
I'll tell you, man, we've been through hell this last year and a half. All of us have. I mean,
mhm.
what? And yet we show up here. And I think if you say,
Well,
how's emotional sobriety?
yeah.
I'm showing
Well,
up. And I'm showing up.
the folk and what we learn to do, we get, I always say, dissatisfaction and gratitude coexist. Just because other people have it worse than we do doesn't mean we don't have an opportunity to hurt and, yeah, and even complain. I always had a sponsor of mine used to say, he didn't say complaints. He talked about self-pity. He said self-pity is a good place to visit. You just don't want to live there.
Yeah, that's right.
And I like the idea that we don't judge ourselves for going through just normal natural things. It's like, yeah, we can feel really bad. We get to complain, and it can mean that, but it doesn't mean for most of us that we've lost our sense of perspective and gratitude. It's like,
Yep.
no, I can get it. I can get it of all the problems in the world. I'll take mine. Mine are wonderful. They're great.
Well, that's the other thing I was going to say about our emotional sobriety collectively as a group. The thing I really appreciate about what we've done in yourselves is we have demonstrated authenticity. We are who we are. We don't come on here trying to look like we got our act all together and that we're all, you know, perfect and living life, and applying these principles perfectly all the time. That's not who we've been. And I
No.
hope our listeners, and I'm sure they do. I heard a lot of people say this, is that we appreciate that you guys have just, you know, been real about what you've been experiencing and what you've been going through. And the other thing is that when we can show up, we show up. And when not,
Yeah.
there's no judgment. I hope you never feel pressure that if you don't want to
Right.
be here, you're here and you just aren't.
Nope.
We make it
Nope.
work.
The good news for me is I don't have to have a very, very good memory just to remember how I fucked up, because I can just remember back earlier today, and I have that. But my favorite story about that is I was doing a series of workshops for the Jack Daniels Corporation, which was, of course, was fun as a recovered alcoholic. It's not a self-selected population. It's managers, people who have to sit there and listen to me. So we're used to having, at this point in our career, Alan, we're used to people. If we're talking to a group of people, they want to be there, or they want to be there for the topic, but they also want to be there specifically to see us. So that's a spoiler. And I had one woman come up to me after one of the presentations, and she just said, "I just want to thank you for being so messed up." And immediately I knew exactly what she meant. I mean, she felt less alone because I just told a couple of stories about how crazy I am, and she was in a better spot. So yeah,
Yeah. Well,
it's a better way to be.
absolutely. And the emotional sobriety stuff, releasing myself from the grip of perfectionism, to Alan's point, has helped me to show up a lot more by not putting as much of a judgment on the quality of my showing up.
Getting beyond the grip of perfectionism. I just felt that immediately when you said that. I thought, because so often you've dropped yourself back into that place and continued with your language to just kind of reinforce that you're in it. We're supposed to show up and do our best every day, and our best every day is not the same from one day to the next. And a lot of times we'll surprise ourselves, and if I show up, I'll do better than I thought I was going to do. But it's still, the goal is just to do the best.
Starting from a point of, well, maybe I'm not good enough. Enough for
Mm-hmm.
what? Enough for who? Based on what? And compared to what?
Exactly.
If I could
Yeah.
just start with like accepting, like, yeah, you know what? Probably not good enough. This is me. This is what I could bring to the table. And
That's a great question. Good enough for what? Yeah, that's it.
And as far as my emotional sobriety today, thinking about this new relationship I'm in, and I think that it's putting me into contact with my codependence, because my partner at this moment is a very independent person, and she's somebody who's happy to have me around, but doesn't unhealthily lean on me or require me to kind of like be out over my skis as much as I was in my previous relationship. That's a strange sensation. It makes me wonder, like, how relevant am I, any moment to
Yeah. Hey,
happening.
that gets us in touch with these unenforceable rules. Like, if you love me, you're gonna want to spend more time with me. Well, maybe not. You
Yeah.
know,
Mhm.
maybe love is accepting what is without putting any expectation on it. Whoa, did I just say that?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He used a word that told us more about what was going on, and he said relevant. What is it? So what is it? The question becomes, what is relevance? How do you know you're relevant? And is it, and again, like you're saying, Alan, is relevant relevance is that the same as somebody needing you there all the time? It doesn't sound like the same thing.
It's nice to have the opportunity to be with somebody so different, and she is different than me in a lot of ways in the way she sees the world, and um, her upbringing, and her career, and but we do have a strong connection, and hopefully, like, I can hang with this because I like it, and I'm finding new ways, new ways that I'm both better than I was before, and also new ways that I could use some improvement. So.
So we're on with our task. We're continuing on through the grapevine.
That's right.
Enter my lonely heart. Something like that.
Yeah, Jeff Bridges could do it.
Her first prayers were uttered in despair and desperation, but the best one of all was said sober. I've prayed 3 prayers in my whole life, and they are not even prayers. They're more like deeply unplanned utterances from the bowels of my soul, erupting from some inner Mount Vesuvius. Words on my lips that I haven't crafted, intended, or chosen. They just arrived, like a process that's so imperative as to be unstoppable. The first prayer happened 33 years ago. No, wait, 34 years ago. I was sitting in a darkened church on the day after Thanksgiving. I held my beautiful, just turned 2-year-old boy in my lap. He was practically immobile in his too big cartoon bear snowsuit. It was very cold
Mm.
out. I didn't know what I was doing, but that day I knew I was dying inside. Drinking had been something that I was sure I would stop as soon as I got married, settled down, and had children. That's what I had figured. It would be automatic, I thought. The craziness would just stop.
But 2 years into this beautiful boy's life, it hadn't stopped. In fact, my drinking had gotten worse. The daily crucifixions of myself in my own mind clicked inside my head like a metronome all day long. You're a horrible mother. What happened to you last night? Did he cry? Were you passed out again? The only thing that shut those questions up was a drink until the next day when it started all over again. That day in church, I held onto my beautiful boy, looked up at the altar, at the crucifix, at the stained glass windows, and said the first prayer of my life. You better do something. I had no faith that the God of this church would help me. The words just came out of my tortured soul in the only attitude I was capable of, a demanding surrender.
8 months later, 8 cruel months of quiet desperation, isolation, and mental defect, my next prayer emerged. This time I was on the bathroom floor, towel shoved inside my mouth to soften the sound of my screaming, my husband on the other side of the door banging to let me in. I'd never been more alone in my whole life. I cried out to something. God, question mark. The universe, question mark. The devil, question mark. I can't live like this. Boy, that's heavy, huh? What a moment in your life. We've all
Yeah.
been there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That night, the 3rd of July, 1988, I stumbled out of the bathroom, poured my drink in the sink, and fell into a kind of crazily comforted sleep. The next morning, the first words out of my mouth were, I'm an alcoholic.
A week later, not having had a single drop of alcohol for a whole week, I walked into my first AA meeting. I was miserable. I had surrendered. I was ready for the life sentence of this prison. I deserved the punishment. Go ahead, I thought. Tell me what I must do for my penance. A woman got up and spoke, talking about how she took an inventory every day. Sometimes several times a day. I thought, well, I already threw everything out. There was alcohol in my house, but I better check whether I missed a bottle or two if this lady says she'd take a daily inventory. But I better check whether I missed a bottle or two if this lady says she'd take a daily inventory. I had no idea what a 10th step was, but I liked how honest the woman was about herself. When she finished, people started taking turns talking from the floor, and the option to speak was making its way around to where I was sitting.
When it got to me, I said my name. I said my name and that I was there for the first time. I just wanted them to hurry up and get to the next person, please. Instead, everyone started clapping, nodding their head at me and sending vibrations of such acceptance my way that I actually felt a kind of spiritual hug. I'm not sure, but I think my mouth was open in shock as I let this goodwill enter my lonely, lonely heart. I will never forget that moment. I wanted the floor to swallow me up, and yet I wanted them to continue hugging me forever. 6 months later, at Christmas, my husband and I were setting up the tree in our living room. He had done me the tremendous service of stopping his own drinking during these months to support my efforts. I had a sponsor and was working the steps, attending meetings, starting the process of bringing my disease thinking into the sunlight of the spirit by self-examination and sharing and turning things over.
Prayer was pretty much reciting things like the Serenity Prayer and the Lord's Prayer at the end of the meeting. I like the idea of a higher power, all right, but I was turning my will and my life over to the AA program. But this night I was on the floor, setting up the trains under our tree. I was on my knees and knelt up to straighten my back. The lights on the tree flickered softly in my eyes. The pine scent filled my nose. My son was sleeping peacefully in his crib.
Mhm.
Was sober. That's when the third prayer I ever said in my life came out of my mouth. Not addressed to AA or to my husband or to anyone I had ever met. It was to the same entity that I had reached out when I prayed in a darkened church for God, quote unquote, to do something. And the time I prayed in total desperation on the bathroom floor because I couldn't live anymore. The prayer was a simple 2 words, wrapping me in a humble glow that still echoes today. Thank you.
Oh, I say this every time. That's my favorite. That's my favorite. I love that.
She got to the point where she felt so much gratitude. Gives me goosebumps.
So well written too, because in 2 short pages, so accurately depicts everything has turned around. A drastic change.
There's just something so profound to me about the depths of our pain, the way that
Yeah.
it can break us out of a cycle. It is something that we can come to be grateful for when enough time has passed, when we can kind of like, it's like you're always saying, Tom, the only accurate insight is hindsight.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, that was that gratitude prayer that she comes to at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Even though, we all found some recognition in that moment where she's on the floor of her bathroom with the towel in her mouth, that deep well of despair. We don't know at the time, yeah, how can we put this to work for us? How can we rise from this? You need that in order to rise.
We can all identify with the 3 prayers. Do we identify with each one of those 3 prayers? Absolutely.
Well, the thing that I really, really like, I mean, there's so many aspects of this that relate to what we've been talking about. I mean, first of all, freedom, right? That she
Mm-hmm.
found freedom from her addiction. I mean, which was so important, right? I mean, my God, we all could identify with that emotional bankruptcy that she got to in this point. Is that nothing's working. I'm not being who I want to be. And, this is one of the things that stands out about, a woman in recovery who suffered from addiction is filled with so much shame, especially when they have children, in terms of not being there, neglecting that child, putting that child at risk, in harm's way if they're drinking and driving. And it's quite a journey coming out of all of that shame, right? Because because her maternal instinct, says, my God, my job is to protect my child, not to put my child in danger. And, what we know about our disease is it really hijacks who we truly are. We lose our true self. We lose our sense of self in our addiction. I lost myself. And it takes a
Mm-hmm.
long time to get that sense of self back and the self that we can be, right? That we talk about all the time, the true self. But there's a few other things that stand out. See, it's so important to learn from her because it's not that she just prayed. She took action. Prayer without action is meaningless. I like what Herb says about it, is when I turn my will over to God, it's not that I'm abdicating responsibility. I'm using God as kind of like a global positioning system, a GPS or a God position system where it orients me to the direction I need to take myself and now get into action. Because if she didn't go to that meeting, right, saying I'm an alcoholic, you're going to be dry, but you're not going to have emotional sobriety, right? And so you're going to end up being dry, but miserable and doing a lot of the same things now sober that you were doing before when you were, in the midst of your addiction. And that's what emotional sobriety does. It not only is about that stage one recovery that Larson talks about, right? Breaking the bonds of our addiction, which happened when she surrendered, but it's also about that second half of that first step, that our lives had become unmanageable. And it's not just because of our drinking and using, but it's because of the path that we took very early on in our life to try to make this life work. And that's the powerful realization I think that Bill had, is that it's not enough to put the plug in the jug. Then the real work starts, right? And we all know that. The real work starts. Then that whole issue about the issues that come in the mountain of issues that come in living, start to show up for us. Like Patrick's talking about being in a new relationship, or me, Patrick, and you dealing with cancer, Patrick dealing with his fall, dealing with my legs, my divorce, and all of the stuff that's come with that. Wow, man. Wow. That's what emotional sobriety is being able to face these difficult, challenging, impossible moments in our life and somehow finding a way through.
I'm glad you mentioned Herb K because he'd be kind of disgusted with me, I think. I don't get on my knees very often. The prayer aspect of my recovery is not the most cultivated. But God, you helped me so much, Alan, with that analogy of the GPS, of God kind of helping to direct our actions as we get our lives together and get connected. And I feel like um, maybe that's a way that I can bring a God consciousness or a practice of prayer into my recovery. It'll just fine tune the way, the direction that I'm moving, because I've been getting there. I've been doing the deal, but maybe like I haven't had as much clarity as to direction. I'm just gonna read this prayer my friend gave me. I printed it out, and it is my prayer, and I do it whenever I can think to. It's the awaken prayer. Awaken to gratitude, awaken to peace, awaken to health, awaken to wealth, awaken to wisdom, awaken to love, awaken to freedom, awaken to justice, awaken to success, awaken to joy. And my friend, I just saw him in France when I was over there for that workshop recently, and I heard him saying it in the shower. So I know that he's been keeping up with it. I think he says it every day, and I've just I've never had the greatest God consciousness, and I haven't been able to ingrain a practice of prayer. And so this is just my cards on the table. I thought of this when listening to the story.
Well, listen, it did. I think was stimulated that because she really expressed so much gratitude when her little two-word prayer was uttered from her mouth. Thank you. I mean, and that's also a part of emotional sobriety, is that we feel a real sense of gratitude about what we've discovered here, and that we've discovered something that helps us, try to show up in this life in the best way we can, to take the best possible attitude. And the point I want to make is it's not just being grateful when things go our way. It's finding gratitude when things don't. It's easy to be grateful when things are going well. It really is. The program doesn't promise you wealth and success in your job. It does promise you an emotional freedom. And that doesn't mean that everything is going to go your way, because it won't. Our life doesn't go our way, man. We all know that. The three of us, we wouldn't have predicted the things that happened to us this last year. But the thing that we all three of us have done is we've showed up and dealt with that stuff without turning to a bottle, without relapsing, and trying the best we can to find a way through. Sometimes stumbling and falling and sometimes screaming about it, sometimes crying about it. But yet we found a way to keep putting one foot in front of the other.
I gotta say, and this is a compliment to Tom, and it's also a shout out to one of my recovery mentors, and on top of you guys is Mark Marin, who has a podcast called WTF. I used to listen to all the time, and in the same sense that when we're growing up, we look up to people like Jimi Hendrix or these virtuosos of awesomeness, that we aspire to. And I remember when I got introduced to Mark Marin was when I was in like the last couple of years of my drinking and using, and I was just I was intimately aware of like how unmanageable my life was, and I was in so much pain, but I just couldn't change my behavior. I was just stuck in it. And so I started watching this guy Mark Maron, and oftentimes he was like grouchy and like he was unhappy and with what life was serving him, and but like there's something about the way that like he could do the next day sober. At the time that I started listening to his stuff, I think he'd already had like almost a couple decades of recovery. There's something about the way that that he was grouchy, but then he did life, or but he was grouchy, or he was dealing with the latest punch, and he could write an hour of material, you know what I mean, or he could do an interview, that really kind of like provided a channel into this like wider spectrum of experience that could be so compelling and inspirational, and I think like that's that emotional freedom that you guys are talking about, you know what I mean? In a sense, for me, like that is like the Jimi Hendrix guitar solo of like, the person that can do that, you know what I mean, has now become kind of like the thing that I'm after. So
Well,
whatever
the
that's worth.
gift of that is
And
you can
you've
still
oh wait,
be,
wait,
you can
Tom,
still
Tom, and you've
yeah,
got that. I just wanted to say, and you've got that. Like you've got that kind of joie de vivre,
grouchiness.
even in your grouchiness, yeah, but the way that you handle life. So I want what you've got.
Well, it's what you're describing is we get to be who we are. It's like this doesn't make. I mean, people who don't know, who've never been, anybody who ever says AA is a cop out, or AA is a cult, or any of that stuff. What we know about those people is one thing: they've never been to an AA meeting. It's like especially if they think AA lets people off the hook. But I've got two people right now, two clients that are basically just now at the point of sobriety, and from one from an eating disorder and another for alcoholism, where they haven't got a clue, what you were talking about, Patrick. They haven't got a clue who they are or who they're going to be next. And so one of the things I wanted to say about that article was for anybody listening to to get to that thank you at the end. It's like it takes as long as it takes, and so have patience, use support, hang in there. It's like we're not in charge of the timing for sure. That thank you will come if you stay on this road. It's just get as much support as you need, and know that, and then you can, I mean, when I got sober, I didn't think I'd ever be funny again. That was one of the scariest things for me. I didn't think I would be. I mean, I couldn't think of anything funny or and it's like and it was very wonderful to find out that once I got really sober, I could be as obnoxious sober as I was drunk.
Certainly, you have been.
Don't you think, Patrick?
Yeah. Um, hey, and just to your point, Tom, I was just reflecting on this about how when I first met Allen, which is right around the time I got sober,
Hmm.
I had never hated myself more. Like I had so little self-respect, self-regard, so little joy. And it hasn't been that long since then. I mean, it's been like coming up on 6 years. And
Hmm.
like I've gotten to a point of okay with me. I'm not gonna I'm not going to go too heavy and say that I love myself, but I'm just going to say that,
Mhm.
like, compared to where I was, like, and so that's like what just a little bit of time can do. So I mean, and I'm sure you're passing that along to those clients, right? It's
Yeah. Well, a little bit of
yeah,
time and the hard work, and you did the hard work too. I mean, it's what Alan's saying. It's like it's all it's 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 never about what we do all alone, but it is about what we do. My favorite metaphor about recovery is like if you imagine a team of sled dogs, and we're all the lead sled dog of our own sled, and it's like, so if I'm the lead sled dog and I got six other dogs strapped in behind me, that's a lot of power to pull this sled. If I lie down, if that lead sled dog lies down and doesn't get up, we're going nowhere. And so if we can each see ourselves as the leader and know that the support is back there, and you're gonna you guys are there, and when I start moving, you're gonna help me pull the load.
it's such a cool thing to be able to do every Sunday.
It's a meeting of sorts for us. It's like each one of us have talked at different times that we have come to benefit from, and sometimes I would say benefit from, always, but sometimes depend on, you know, this connection uh, when we need it most. Even when I was gone, when I was gone when I was out with the cancer treatment, it's like I swear, you guys, knowing you guys were here, knowing my spot was safe, and it's like that I had a place to come home to, uh, made all the difference.
Well, you did, man. I'm glad you didn't listen to any of your shows because we cursed you every week.
Yeah.
Damn, Tom.
I,
Fantastic dad. Oh my God.
I had somebody tip me off. They said, "Don't listen, don't listen. Just keep your delusions going." No, I love my delusions.
Yeah.
Listen, we had a lot of love going out to you, man. It's the real
I
truth.
know.
We were,
I know.
Patrick and I were very concerned about you through many.
Yikes.
Look, that's part of the thing, man. When you love someone, it comes with all of those experiences. It comes with, enjoying them and appreciating them, but it also comes with a certain amount of dread over losing them and all the experience that comes with those things. And, we all want to, once again, I just go over this, or I remind myself of this, I should say. Life is not just about the good. There's a lot of good. There's a lot of wonderful things in life that we can enjoy, but it's also about embracing when it's not good and figuring that out. And look at the other thing I was going to say about this, and then we can wrap this up. She finally listened to herself.
Mm-hmm.
Finally listened to herself. Her pain was a signal that something was wrong. Not that she was wrong, that something was wrong about how she was living her life. Oftentimes we listen to that and we make, to me, the wrong conclusion that I'm the mistake. And when we say I'm the mistake, then all you can do is continue to feel bad about yourself. But if you say, look, there's something going on here that doesn't feel right for me, what can I do to right the ship, right? To get on course again,
Yeah.
to be able to have a relationship with myself and an experience with myself and in my life that is rewarding, that is nourishing. And that doesn't mean it's going to work out like we said earlier, the way we want it to all the time, but it means that we can work it out and we can always grow from whatever experience we're having, whether it be joy or sorrow, whether it be happiness or sadness. There's a path here in emotional sobriety.
Change your life, change your myth. Cultivate your narrative with whomever you